Folks, Dave from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and today I got Cecil Howe with me in the house from Sword Peddlers, and also, which is your website, and then you also operate it under the Cone of Negative Energy. Is
Yep,
that it? All right.
that's the one.
So we were just playing around a little bit with the hex mapper, and I had to. I had to do a couple workarounds to install it, but not because of the program, but I think it was more with something to do with my computer. It's one of the consequences of me not really knowing what I'm doing through most of my life and just figuring it out. And I end up removing things that I later need. So, and this time I was fortunate enough to be able to figure out how to put it back.
Sweet. Good times.
Good times, yeah. And as always, folks, you will find social media and the website information and a link to the store on Drive-Thru-RPG. All that good stuff is in the description below here on the YouTubes. So how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great. It's a good day. I had to move my office into my super boring bedroom because my wife and my daughter are both home from work and school sick.
Oh no!
So if you hear coughing, it's not because I live in a hospital. They're just sick all the time.
Yes, exactly, James Leslie. Hit it with a stick until it works. That is basically my philosophy. So where are you coming from? Which
I'm in Tennessee.
Okay.
Murfreesboro, just south of Nashville.
Nice. So you're here on the East Coast. So how did you get into? Or let's just start with the Hex Mapper and talk about that and kind of tell people what that's all about.
So Hex Kit, back in 2016, spring of 2016, I had just quit my day job, my real job. Bartending was a night thing. And to do freelance cartography full time. Like, business was great. It was like time great with like tax return time, etc. Had some savings, go full time. But I wanted a way to sort of put a floor on my income, so when work wasn't coming in, I was still generating royalties and stuff. So I did this set of tiles, the hex tiles, and just released them. You had to use like GIMP or Photoshop to put your map together, and that was Hex Kit Fantasyland. And it was really popular enough to the point where we were just getting demands all the time for software. And so December of that year, I got with my buddy Ross Squires, and it's like, hey, you're a software engineer. Would you please make this software for me? And he was like, yeah, send me a proposal. And so I sent him a proposal with design sketches and UI and stuff. And within like a day, he had a working tech demo. And so we built it up through the winter of 2017, kickstarted it at the beginning of that spring. It went 1.0 shortly after that. And we've just been kind of doing updates to the software, releasing new tile sets, stuff like that. But basically, it's just a super simple hex mapping utility.
Sweet. You want to screen share and show it off a little bit?
Sure. Let's see if I can do that.
I suspect you can.
I have to make sure I don't have anything like stupid on my desktop.
Yeah.
Right on.
There we go.
So this is Hex Kit, and this might go a little slow. It's built on Chrome technology, and there's a weird thing in Chrome where it's not optimized for hardware acceleration. So if it slows down, it's the internet. It's not the program. We don't suck that bad.
We suck less than that.
Yeah.
That's our motto. We're sticking to it.
Definitely. So yeah, this is Hex Kit. I'm just gonna make a quick, like super quick treasure map with it. These treasure map icons there was a tile set that I illustrated and released just a couple of weeks ago when we released the 2.0 version of Hex Kit.
Cool.
But as long as it's not chopping out too bad, you can see like how quick the maps are built and how it randomizes the tiles for you, so you get something just a little bit more stylish.
No, it's totally running fine.
Sweet. So yeah, you get your base layer, you put down your base stuff, then you can add layers, and then it has dynamic tiles, which is something that we hadn't really seen in any hex mapping software before, where you could do dynamic coasts because they have transparency. And so you can put together cool coasts, rotate them up, interesting stuff like that. So let's see.
That is pretty cool. But why is your water gray?
Everyone keeps saying that's gray. Like I've been doing art professionally for a long time, and I'm starting to realize that I might be colorblind because it's blue. It's blue to me.
That's funny.
But yeah, so that's Hex Kit in a nutshell. You make cool maps.
I'll survey the chat. Is the water gray or blue?
Dude, they're all going to say gray.
What if I'm colorblind? Oh my god!
So though that's specifically that blue. But to get that blue, I actually pull the blue pigment out of a black marker. So when people say it's gray, I'm like, I'm taking the blue out. So I don't not believe them. I just.
Oh my god, the chat is the best because they're like, it's green gray, it's blue gray, it's not gray, it's indigo, so not gray, gray greenish. Looks all gray to me. Some blue in there. Chat, you're useless. You didn't help me at all.
Yeah, thanks for nothing, chat. But that's Hex Kit in a nutshell. You make hex maps with it, quick and simple. Our QA team is my 6-year-old daughter.
Nice.
As long as she can use it, we're good. It does pretty pictures. It just recently got support for both orientations. When we originally launched it, it only did pointy up. I don't know if that's horizontal or vertical orientation, but that was the biggest complaint. Everyone was like, "Why doesn't it do flat tops?" And it's like, well, the art doesn't go flat top because it's all hand drawn, so you can't really rotate it. Even the borders are hand drawn on it. And so we caved in and added support for flat top tiles, and but the black spot is the only one that it works on for now. Yeah, that's Hex Kit.
So can you only do overland stuff, or could you map a dungeon if you wanted to?
Actually, you can map.
Wait, there's more.
Yeah. So we'll screw with that. In the Traveling Through Dangerous Scenery tile set, there are tiles called paper dungeon.
Now, Cecil, I really need you to just channel your Billy Mays the whole time while we're doing this. Just think ShamWow.
I don't know what that is. I don't even know who Billy Mays is.
He was told as the greatest pitch man ever.
Really?
Like, on the infomercials, it's like, hey, wait, there's more. Buy now.
He's an infomercial guy?
Yeah.
I gotta watch more TV. So yeah, you can do dungeons with getting clever with dungeon tiles. That's not clever.
That's not clever. I just created a dead end and my dungeon doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do dungeons. It doesn't do interiors super well because it's not really, hex maps aren't really, unless you're playing like GURPS, people don't really want hex-shaped interiors, even though it's a superior shape. People still want squares. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hex maps are actually superior to squares because squares you can cheat on. I mean, if you're playing grid at D&D anyway.
Yeah. You get six angles of movement and everything. It's
or
good.
Or you got to go weird with it, and be like, all right, like every other is 10 foot when you move on the diagonal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
See the dungeon shape a little bit.
I like the way it protects the hex.
Yeah.
The wall, it's walled off from the color.
Yeah. So it does interiors. It does cities. That same tile set has cities. So you can go through and let's see.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So you can put down your city tiles. Let's get rid of the dungeon. and then you can go through and add roads, you know.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's actually really easy and fast.
Yeah, it's so when I sent Ross, the engineer, that initial proposal, I was like, I want this to be like, do you ever use KidPix? Was this super old, like from when I was a kid, this like Microsoft Paint alternative that was on old Apple computers. And like the eraser was a bomb. Like if you wanted to erase, you click the bomb and then click your picture and it blew it up. You know, it's like fun. Those are really easy to use. And so I told Ross, I was like, I want this to be like the KidPix of map making software. Just like super easy to use.
So Mark Bird has a question. How many hexes can you have?
It's dependent on your computer. So if you got like a Hercules computer, you can make some pretty big maps. Like my computer will start to bottom out at about 30 by 30 tiles with 4 or 5 layers. But we sort of benchmark it on modern computers running 60 by 60 maps with about 3 layers. But it depends on your computer. It's really image intensive. So
well, it seems like we have one of your customers in the chat, Turtle Hat.
Oh yeah, it's Carl. Carl actually was on our original QA team. We're like, Carl, help us find these bugs. And this dude, to this day, still uses an old buggy version of Hex Kit from when he was doing our QA. Oh. So whenever he has a problem, he's like, I've got a problem. Did you update to the actual app? But he's good people. He's funny.
Yeah. He says my DCC map is 60 by 60 or something like 6 layers, and it does fine. So that's pretty big. Yeah.
And actually, Carl Turtlehack, he's responsible for the Hex Kit supports touchscreen controls if you're using like a Microsoft Surface.
Okay.
That was because he wouldn't stop bugging us about it. So he's the only person who's ever used it or cared about it. But it's there.
But it's there. That's funny. God damn it, Carl.
He's good. He's good people.
So yeah, this is actually really cool. You also sent me something else, right?
Yeah, I sent you a copy of "Do Not Let Us Die in the Dark Night of This Cold Winter," which is a game that I wrote. It's like a mini game. Here, I'll go ahead and turn Hex Kit off. Stop ruining the connection.
Well, that's cool, but people were able to see like really fast what it does, how fast you're doing stuff. It seems like after you get the hang of it, it'd be pretty intuitive. Yeah,
it is. It's really quick. That's one of the compliments we get the most is that the UI is super intuitive. So once you get your tile sets imported, you just fly through it.
Yeah. So Complacent Badger, are you able to add text and or notes directly to the map?
Yeah. I'll open it back up. We'll go to the other thing here in a little bit. I'll show you Hex Kit some more.
Yeah. People seem to be digging it.
Yeah.
Fraginator says, based on the tech guide, could only make a 6x6 with 2 layers then.
Tell him he needs to upgrade his Game Boy. So we'll do a little forest map here, some farmlands, some grass, and then we'll put in a spooky forest. There we go. Some hills. That's too spooky. And then we want to add like text and stuff in. We go to the information layer is what we call it. It's the icon.
I love that your spooky forest add ghosts and red eyes. That looks like a selling feature to me.
That was that part of the tile set is like my love letter to Darkest Dungeon. So yeah, you can add text. You can change the font. You can, let's see.
Yeah, this definitely looks really good for people that aren't particularly tech savvy like myself or artistic.
That's because I'm also a computer idiot, and I was like, if we're gonna do this, I'm a functioning idiot. I've got to be able to do it. So. Yeah, you can add text if you're way into hex maps. Like if you're an old school hex map player, you can show coordinates and mess with those. So you can get your numbers going on. You can also store data in the map. So like, let's turn the numbers off. Let's say your spooky forest, you want some information in there, like this is where the bad guys are. There are 6 of them, and they have weapons. Spooky. And they're ghosts.
So we got a couple questions coming in while you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
The Mighty Hob, what sort of export options are there?
So for exporting, you can export a player-facing version of it and a DM-facing version of it, or a GM-facing version of it. And you can export it for print quality or for digital quality. So the player-facing version is basically only going to show what you want your players to see.
Mm-hmm.
So Hex Kit has this cool thing called display mode. And it opens up a version of the map that you can show on another monitor or project it on the wall of your hotel room or whatever. And you can do stuff like fog of war. And it shows up in that display window real time.
Oh, nice.
So if you wanted to...
I just like the fact that you went right to display on the hotel, on the room of your hotel.
I was a touring musician and an audio engineer for a long time.
Yeah.
At stops, we would project our Super Nintendo on the hotel, play like NBA Jam. So that's my point of reference. But yeah, so if you wanted to export a player-facing version of the map, it would be the version that you see in the display window. So you could print out or show, if you're using Roll20 or Discord or something like that, you could show a Fog of War version of the map.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the one lazy guy has a question. And this is a really good one. Because I always do this on these live chats. Is this program accessible for screen reader, voiceover users? If not, at least it will be in your head now.
Yeah. Should load up chat. So wait, did you have a question?
Yeah, the question is the program accessible for screen reader or voiceover users for people that are visually impaired?
I don't know. That's something that I'm always kind of concerned about. But I don't know anybody who uses those. And it's kind of hard for me to get feedback on it. I want to say that technically any screen reader that can read, if you have a screen reader that works with Google Chrome, like if you have one that you use to read blogs or whatever, listen to blogs, it should technically work in Hex Kit. That being said, there's not a whole lot of text going on, so I'm not sure. But I am going to file that in the to check out list because that's something I'm trying to be a lot more aware about with the stuff that I release.
Well, and I suspect that was the one lazy guy's actual and real intent was get that out there. Because
yeah,
it's I understand a lot of people don't intentionally like go out of their way to exclude other people, but they just don't think about it. Like, how would this affect this or that?
Yeah. So I just that Do Not Let Us Die in the Dark Night of This Cold Winter that I sent you. I just released a Roll20 module version of it that's like built specifically to be in Roll20. And something I did with that is I didn't do a whole lot of text on images specifically so that screen readers could read it and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a few things that I couldn't get around, but a majority of like the rules and procedures and stuff like that, you can use your screen reader if, like with Roll20 and it'll read it.
So DM Dom wants to know, so when I build this, is it already sized for play?
Depends on what you mean by that. Like, do you mean, does it mean like,
yeah, I'm not sure either, because you'd probably set the scale and have to decide what you know, what each hex means to you. Is it 5 feet or is it 5 miles or 20 miles?
Yeah, that's where like me and old school hex map lovers start to like butt heads. I like hex maps because it's a super easy way to store data about an entire world. If you have like a traditional map that just has points and pretty artwork, you can write down what's going on there. But the stuff happening in between is a little bit harder to codify.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with a hex map, you can number them and then write down everything that's in every number. And it makes doing exploration games and West Marches style play and stuff like that. But as far as scale goes, like I'm completely unconcerned with it. Like,
yeah. So Cardboard Fortress has a question a while back that I totally missed. Sorry, Anthony. Can you turn down the hex line weight?
No. So each tile is hand illustrated, and I don't have any of them on hand with me, but each one is hand illustrated on paper with watercolor paints and markers and crayons and stuff. And that includes the border. The way that it works is the borders overlap to create the grid. And that's sort of how Hex Kit's always been, because when it was just tile sets and there wasn't software, it was the easiest way to make a map that didn't start to lean or something. But no, you can't. There are other tile sets from third parties that don't have that. There's a great pixel art tile set, and I'll pull those up here in a second, that has no borders. And there's a Roll20 marketplace artist who goes by Meditating Monkey, who does Hex Kit compatible tiles that are a lot more traditional. They're not as like artsy fartsy as the ones that I illustrate. And I'll pull this up here in a second too. But so no, the tile borders, they're that thick because it's like I wanted it to look like stained glass.
So the Mighty Hob wants to know, how about importing images or backgrounds?
If you want to do a fancy background that's on it when you export it, we don't do with that. That was sort of outside of what we wanted to have in there. You can set an overlay. So you could, if you have like a sketch of a map that you want to turn into a hex map, you can import it and it'll show it over your map, and then you can hex around it. But we decided to leave the background thing out for now, at least, because we want to keep the feature list low to keep the price tag really low. And the more stuff we add to it, the more I have to pay the engineer to do upkeep, the higher the price tag goes. So we just wanted, we wanted to stay sort of in the impulse buy range, something you just real quick map, just done, and send it out. But there are people that get really creative with their maps after they finish them in Hex Kit. They'll open up Photoshop and do cool borders and backgrounds and stuff like that.
So Master of the Game has a question, and God damn it, Juice, put question in front of your questions like everybody else. How much does it cost?
The application is $15 on Drive-Thru, and the tile sets range in price. The application comes with classic tiles that are black and white for all you old school fans. They look kind of like this for ocean. Get you something like that. So that's $15 for the core application, and then like I said, the tile sets they range from like $4.50 to I think the most expensive one is $8.99.
Okay.
Those tiles are gray. I'm watching the chat now.
Yeah. So Zarek Gaming wants to know, where can I find this on Roll20?
1 second. So the tile sets are on Roll20. If you just search for Cone of Negative Energy on Roll20, it'll come up with the tile sets. But the application, that's totally separate from Roll20.
Okay, and that's on Drive-Thru-RPG, which there's a link in the description, guys. And gals, you can check out there. Fraginator just opened this month's Patreon awards. The new format is sweet. Not having to open each category separately is awesome, and saving time. Good work. You're welcome, Fraginator, and you can greatly thank Doug for that, because he does the layout and makes it look sweet. Can we make our own tile sets, Mighty Hob? I would assume yes, based off the fact that you said other people are doing it.
Yep. So we wanted, when we released 2.0, that was sort of our like community update. Hex Kit has an internal API now. It supports plugins. If you know anything about JavaScript or React, you can start doing some crazy shit with Hex Kit. And we want other artists to create and publish or sell or give away free their own tile sets. We don't get in the way of that at all. There's not a licensing thing. We don't take a cut of any of that. We just want other people to make tile sets. The ones that I do by hand, and I do thousands of tiles at a time, and it takes forever, and I don't want to do that the rest of my life. So other people should definitely start making tile sets.
Nice. So, is this getting a lot of use in your own games, or do you freehand stuff?
I do use Hex Kit in my home games, especially if I'm running over like Discord or something, because of the screen share is really nice. But if I'm not using it for an overlay map, I don't use maps at the table at all, actually.
Oh, okay. So theater of the mind.
Yeah. Well, I spend my day job as maps. So when it's time to like relax and play the game, A, I don't even want to run a game. I want to play. And B, like if the players want a map, they can draw it themselves.
Nice. We will not map.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. Are you playing in regular games now?
I play when I can, I play in a regular Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign.
Okay.
I'm not playing any D&D right now. I haven't played 5th edition. It's probably been a year and a half or so. I work on Shadow of the Demon Lord. I do almost all of the cartography. I've done a few of the writing. I've had some writing gigs from it, and it's definitely my favorite D20 game right now for sure.
Okay, I've heard a lot of good things about it. I have not yet checked it out.
It's good. The setting kind of turns people off. It's pretty grimdark. The author Robert Schwab, he worked on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition. Mm-hmm. He brought a lot of that over, and his name is in like every D&D book from 3.5 through 5th edition. I think his name is in every 5th edition book so far too. But he can be kind of gross. So the setting, it tends to turn people off, but the system, the engine, is the most beautiful, perfect version of a D20 like D&D like engine you could ever have. Yeah.
So what things have you worked on over on there? I guess if you want to kill the screen share, you can too.
Let's kill that.
We're disembodied voices.
Yeah. For Shadow of the Demon Lord, I've done dozens of maps, just mapping all the time. That was one of the reasons I was able to go full time, is because Schwab just constantly has work. He pushes out a release almost once a week. So like I've done maps for adventures written by like Ed Greenwood and Colin McCumb and lots of cool dudes. And I want to say if I averaged it out, it's like almost a map a week for Shadow of the Demon Lord for like the last 2 years.
Oh wow!
So yeah.
It's a lot of maps.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of maps.
Well, and we were talking a little beforehand, and you work basically in the industry full time, freelance.
Yep.
Which is, it's a credit. It speaks to your work, because this is a really, or you you just don't need much money, but you
have to balance the two.
yeah, because it's a really tough industry for people to do full time. Wolfgang Bauer has a day job. So
yeah, well, even like Schwab, he published Shadow of the Demon Lord, is a super successful Kickstarter. It's got a great community behind it. Like, people love it. He still freelances,
Yeah.
And he's selling hundreds of PDFs a week, It's cutthroat. I'm lucky. My wife has a pretty tight job. And I don't need a whole lot of money to live. I'm pretty minimal, always have been. So it just kind of worked out.
Nice. So the Mighty Hob wants to know, once I buy the software, do I get software updates, or do you update the software?
We do update the software. We don't charge for it. There's no internal downloader. We wanted to keep this as easy as possible, so it doesn't connect. There's no DRM. It doesn't connect to the internet for anything. But if you buy it on Roll20 or Itch, or you steal it from 4chan or whatever, the update you'll get notified about it. We don't push out updates very often because that annoys me to get those emails constantly. So we save it until there's something like really important.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, do you have any plans to go? Where do you want to go with it in the future? Right now, and I don't actually know. Is everything all like fantasy based now?
Hopefully, fingers crossed. At the end of this month, we'll be releasing a space tile set called Spaceland, sort of like the sci-fi sister to Fantasyland, and that's in the immediate future for Hex Kit. As after that, I'm not 100% sure. There's a pretty big demand for post-apocalyptic map stuff that no one is really doing right now, so we're going to toy around with that. As far as the software goes, I'm not sure where we're going in the future of that. We're taking a software break right now, but when we come back to it, we'll start planning some super in-demand features and stuff like that, like the having the background. Being able to export your map with the background, that's pretty much in demand constantly lately. So we might toy around with that. We'll see.
Yeah, so Taking 20 says Starfinder maps, it sounds like.
Yeah, Starfinder, Stars Without Number, Traveler. If
Star Wars. There's a bunch of sci-fi games out there. Hey, you could even play Star Frontiers if you want. It's on Drive-Thru-RPG, I believe.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's sort of the immediate future, is getting the Spaceland tile set out and looking at just kind of what features people want in the software.
Complacent Badger, would you please do a good cyberpunk tile set? Shadowrun demands good map making.
I keep knocking my headphones out of here. Stupid.
Unless, but what would it like? That's just kind of like modern, or somewhat into the future, unless you're talking about you want like cyberspace maps.
Yeah, there are some cyberpunk tiles in the Spaceland. So originally with Spaceland, I was making it to be space, post-apocalyptic, modern, and cyberpunk kind of like all in one, but it ballooned past that. So it's got some cyberpunk stuff in that. But we might, cyberpunk is super popular right now, so we might look into doing its own set.
Yeah, I just saw a Kickstarter go up the other day for a 5e, and my phone is just randomly talking to me for no reason. Go away. For a 5e kind of like Shadowrun-esque setting. Mm-hmm. So like I guess like a cyberpunk fantasy mashup.
That's cool. I like the idea of Shadowrun. I've never played it. The setting is super interesting to me. I hate the dragon part, but it seems pretty cool other than that. So.
I think everyone says that. Like everyone is like intrigued by the setting and the lore. And then a lot of the people I know that actually look into it are kind of put off by the rule set.
Yeah, I like rolling dice a lot. I mean, it's a lot of fun. But when I've got to roll like a pile of odd-shaped dice to see how much damage each bit of shrapnel in my grenade does, it's where I check out. So.
Yeah. Make it rain.
Yeah.
The dice. Yeah, no, I totally get that. We played a Shadowrun game a little while back using the Cypher system.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we just kind of like dumbed down the rules.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the holdovers from the 80s. It's like the more rules and tables and stuff you could put in it, the better the game was, allegedly.
Yeah. And the way the hobby is going, they've definitely gone out of style, the rules heavy games, and you just kind of see it dwindling, and then all of a sudden a game like Zweihander comes out, and it's like a 7,000 page tome, and people are like, this is what we wanted. Come on, guys, I thought we wanted 2 pages of rules. What happened?
Yeah. Well, I guess if the game is cool enough, you can definitely get people to like right now we play like, I guess like once a month or once every month we play the Star Wars Fantasy Flight game, and that is definitely not rules light.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fans of Star Wars out there, so
yeah. I Shadow the Demon Lord is definitely the most rules-intensive game that I play regularly now, and it's not rules-intensive at all. It's about as far away from that as you can get. But the other games that I play are super rules. Like I play a lot of Troika, which is it's an OSR game. It's a retro clone of Fighting Fantasy, and it was written by a guy named Daniel Sell from the UK, and it's great. It's just little tiny Fighting Fantasy clone. It's got a really sort of Planescape-esque setting baked into it. It's pretty cool, but it's all D6s. It's pretty light, and I play a lot of Sword Backpack, which is basically a no rules role playing game. I play a lot of Sword Backpack. So it's just a D20.
Cardboard Fortress says all those old grognards got to die off eventually, my dude. Maybe, I don't know. What actually makes one a grognard? So
yeah. It's interesting. The same people that were in the industry and playing role-playing games when it started, they're still around. And it makes for a super interesting hobby because of it.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely are. I was talking to our chief of Nerdarchy, Doug, the other day about, he's like, you know what? I just want to play like an old school dungeon crawl, and I don't want to care about the story, and I just want to kill monsters and take their stuff. I just want to do like some sessions of that.
Yeah, you got to bust out the red box, mold bay, and make it happen.
Because we were talking, he's running a Spelljammer game for us, Ingest Quest, and the characters are all very food centric. Like they have contracts, I think, over what can be done with the corpses after they die, and how long they have to wait before they can eat somebody.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but he was saying that. He's like, he likes the exploration and the combat, but not the social interaction that much. So he's like, now he's like, I keep doing these games where players can just go anywhere and do anything. I need to I need to scale it back now. I just want to do like a dungeon crawl and be like, here's the dungeon, go fight stuff.
Leave. You're stuck in here. Yeah. Kill everything, then I'll let you leave.
Yeah, go explore this place, kill this stuff, and then we'll do the next one.
That's fine. Everything's got its place, I really like playing dungeon crawlers. I'm a big Diablo fan, and any game that just is Diablo on paper, I'll play it.
So Cardboard Fortress said he was recently thinking of a straight up dungeon crawl type deal myself, and also too, I think you brought Anthony. I think you brought up a little while ago, like the X crawl. Which was, I guess that was like a 3.5 thing, where it was like a game show or a reality show, but it was dungeon crawling.
Yeah, the X Crawl. Was that Goodman Games? I think they did that.
Yeah. I'm not sure who did it. I never played it. I remember seeing it. And we kind of did this video about doing a dungeon, and then like Ted describes all this stuff, and I'm like, you just described X Crawl. I was like, Ted, that's a great idea. It already exists.
That's Mike Pondsmith did a game in like 92 or 93 called Dream Park, which I picked up recently. Like I got a cheap copy on eBay, and it's fantastic. It's basically that. It's like in the future there's this big theme park, and you go and you get to role play inside of this role-playing game. Like you play yourself playing a character who's role-playing another character, and it's like broadcast.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Like I want to use it to run like some Space Marines through like Tome of Horrors or something like that. It's got like a Running Man vibe to it almost. It's really cool. It's a neat little system. I feel that it got brushed aside in history, but it's a cool little game.
So Mike Bird has a question. Sorry if it was asked earlier. I'm intrigued by the hex maps, but what is the advantage of hex map for a large scale city or region? I know it's good for small scale battles or strategy.
I want to say that the biggest advantage to that is plugging in stuff. So I don't know if you ever saw the TSR Linkmar book from back in the day. You gave you like a sort of map of Linkmar, and then it had these like tiles that you cut out and you pasted them where you wanted in the city. And so a hex map gives you the ability to sort of have a changing dynamic city all the time. It's not static. You can mess it up and put new stuff in hexes and stuff like that. Other than that, there's not really an advantage. There's some like back and forth on why people even use city maps. But if I was going to use a city map, it would be a hex map. It's just it's a lot of great chaos, all very orderly and in one spot. So.
And some of the maps too. I remember you would get the map, and there was no grid, and then it would have it'd have clear plastic with a grid on it that would go over top.
Yeah,
and you would do it that way.
Yeah. So hexes are cool because they tessellate so easily. Squares do too, and technically, if you brick them, if you overlap your squares, it does the same stuff as a hex. But it's just such a neat shape. It's easy.
There's nothing fun about saying square crawl.
No, yeah, it sounds terrible. I don't want to do that. It sounds like we're going to get up in the morning and have a boring breakfast and get on the bus and go to work and then go to the grocery store. That's not very fun. But a hex crawl, that sounds tight as shit.
Yeah, hex crawl. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is the West March Styles, I guess, game that they play there. Was all hex crawls.
Yeah, West Marches is great. It's before it was called West Marches, it was called Troop Play, which is a lot of fun, and that's my favorite way to play.
We didn't call it anything.
Yeah.
when we were playing before, it'd be like, look, you can move 2 of these hexes a day. Which way do you want to go?
Yeah.
And that's what I remember. That, and when we ended up in a spooky forest, but we didn't have the cool
the ghosts.
Yeah, we didn't have the cool spooky eyes and ghosts, and our party totally got our asses handed to us by evil flying squirrels.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that's great. It's a great, beautiful thing. I love it. You can have cool narrative and story in your hex crawl, or you can have oh shit, only 3 people can make it tonight, and we've got a new dude. Roll up a new dude, and it's just so simple. It's beautiful, easy.
Just go and do it. Yeah, it was horrifying. All the player characters rolling on the ground covered in squirrels, trying to get them off. And because I think they were Monster Manual 2 in AD&D, and they had a latch ability, and it would drain your blood.
It sounds about right. That's fun. That's good stuff. Hex crawls are great, whether it's in a city or not.
So do you have stuff that you're working on right now that you can talk about?
Yeah, I've got a pile of commissions I'm working on. I'm doing a really cool Western themed map for a dude. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it or not. We didn't discuss that. It was just kind of he was like, "Hey, could you do this?" And I was like, "Okay." I'm working on that. It's a pretty big commission. I've got a pile of work for Schwab. I'm doing the sequel to Do Not Let Us Die in the Dark Night of This Cold Winter. And I've been working on my own Heartbreaker RPG sort of on the side here and there. So
actually, we haven't really talked about your RPG at all. we've been dancing around it. Let's dive in there a little bit. What's that about?
All right. So Do Not Let Us Die in the Dark Night of This Cold Winter. It's actually a mini game. It's you can use it as a side quest. You can use it as an adventure. You can use it as a board game if you want. But it's system neutral, and it's made to slide in next to your regular fantasy campaign. And the gist of it is that somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, there's a village, and they're suffering the shittiest winter of all time. It's all children and women and old people. They need help. The adventurers show up, and that's sort of where the rules for their whatever system you're using stop, and the rules for the game kick in. And the adventurers have to collect supplies, food, medicine, and fuel, and then they have to distribute those supplies amongst the villagers to ensure that as many villagers as possible survive. It's kind of a misery simulator in that a lot of villagers die. One of my playtesters called it a fun game of tactical starvation. So, but that's it. You each turn, the players collect the supplies, they distribute them, they've got to mitigate shitty weather. And then at the end of each turn, you draw, or you roll on the occurrence table, and something terrible happens. Sometimes it's a good thing. It's usually terrible. A villager falls on a pile of tools, and you have to use all your medicine, or let the villager die. Stuff like that. So, and
or you don't use any of your medicine, and you've got more food now.
Yeah, you could do that. One of the occurrences that one of the villagers goes mad and runs off into the woods, and the players can choose to recover the body and turn it into food if they want. So,
oh, that's pretty hardcore.
yeah, heavily inspired by like the Donner Party.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm working on this series of seasonal themed mini games that just system neutral, work with whatever fantasy role playing game you're playing. And so the winter one is that, misery simulator survival thing. The fall book is next, and it's actually about farming like magical vegetables and fruits and stuff on graves. It's got its own little dice game for growing the crops, and then it's got a field guide to 30 or so different magical crops and what they do. It's got some crops that you can use as minions. It's got a little Pokemon flair in there. And then it's got some advice on if you're running like a kingdom or a domain management game, using the dice game to making sure like your residents and citizens are fed. Like
so how did you come up with these ideas? I mean, it sounds like it's like a little bit more interesting way of dealing with some of the bookkeeping stuff that usually just gets glossed over. Yeah,
I really like that stuff. I like those subsets of playing role playing. It's like if you've played through Basic, Expert, or VCMI, you're working towards having your wizard tower or having your castle. But then when you get there, it's kind of like it just tells you spend this much gold per brick to build your castle and try not to let your dudes die. It kind of tapers off there. And there's other games that do kingdom and domain management stuff, but it's really complicated. I want to make like the most abstract version of that possible, so that it's fun, but it's not buying each brick individually, for your castle.
I'm trying to think. I remember, I don't know if it was in a Dragon magazine or if it was in the World Builder Guide in AD&D, where they came up with, it was like this real big complex subsystem like you're talking about, where you almost take turns, but the turns happen in seasons or whatever, and you determine what happens. But it's probably going back like 20 years. So
yeah,
it's really vague.
I have a very robust collection of those magazines that I inherited, and I like to flip them. I should try to find them.
So when you do get your gaming in, is it in person or online?
I game online more than I do in person. Because the only role-playing game group in town I know of is the one that I play with. And two of us work in the industry full-time, so it's like hard to get a game going, and everyone else is counting kids and families and stuff.
We met up last night.
Yeah, we met up last night and played. It was good. We try to meet every 2 weeks if we can. But I do a lot of online gaming through Roll20 and stuff. And then I also game with kids a lot. For Free Comic Book Day this past weekend, my local library has me come out and do role-playing game stuff. So I hand out free D20s and sword and backpack rule sets to basically anyone who wants it. And they get like zines and maps and adventures and stuff. And I'll run them through an encounter, teach them how to play a role-playing game, and then send them off to have a good time. And then I'll usually towards the end of the day, I'll run a game for some teenagers that are around. Did that last Saturday. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice. So do you find when you're doing that, you find it's mostly people that are already into games, or are you getting a lot of new people that are kind of curious?
It's mostly new people, like younger people who are curious. But this year, for the first time ever, I had multiple parents who were like, yeah, my kids watched something called Critical Role, and they've been trying to get me in to get them D&D. And I was like, hey, here's this free version of it. Take it. Go play. Graduate to D&D eventually.
Nice.
So, yeah,
it's important. You got to raise up the next generation. Keep it going.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Hey, it's really cool that you do that." It is. It's fun, but I also don't want to stop making role-playing game stuff. So I need to make sure the kids are into it, so they keep buying it.
So what you're saying is really it's self-preservation.
Yeah, but it's also fun. The kids that I play with at the library are hilarious little nerds.
So how do you handle running for kids differently than, say, adults?
It depends on the age group. I worked, like I told you before we got started, I went to college for art education. And I was focusing on elementary school education. And while I was in college and after I left, I taught music for a really long time in the private sector for a nonprofit. did curriculum writing and stuff. So I've always kind of been around kids until I had one. And then I was like, I hate every kid but mine. So I stopped doing it. But with middle school kids and high school kids, I run it just like I would if I was with my friends. You know, I don't dumb it down. I don't change it. If I'm running with little kids, whatever they say just goes. Like 5 to 8 years old, like if they say that their backpack has an Uzi, their backpack has an Uzi, and they can kill the goblin. You know.
It's a little disturbing for where our youth's going. Have you had many kids with Uzis in their backpack?
The very first time I ran for a kid who was younger than like 10, I was like, okay, so what's in your backpack? Before we go into the dungeon, he's like, hand grenade, Desert Eagle, Uzi. So we play a lot of Counter-Strike, and he was like, I love Battlefield. All right. This will be interesting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you arm your monsters with Desert Eagles?
No, it was a slaughter. The goblins had no idea what was coming.
Yeah, that's funny. So you have any really memorable stories from running with youngsters?
Man, actually, on the game this Saturday, it was pretty interesting. We only had like 45 minutes to play before the library was going to close. And I had 4 kids, 2 gals and 2 like best friend dudes. And the 2 gals decided that they were going to play conjoined wizards. And,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, absolutely.
At what age?
Awesome.
And at what ages were these?
I want to say the youngest is 11. There's like 11 and 12, and then like 16 and 17.
Okay.
And 2 of them are brother and sister. The 2 gals, the younger ones, they wanted to play conjoined twins, and the 2 guys were like, hey, our quest should be to separate you guys. And they were like, okay, yeah. It's like, all right, we got to do this in 45 minutes. And the kid playing the thief, he botched every single roll. Every single time he rolled, it was terrible. So he started a forest fire, and he ended up stealing some raccoons, like pots and pans. And they get to the temple, and in the middle of the temple is this big fire, and floating above the fire is the book that can separate the wizards. And the thief was like, I take a dive at it. Botches this roll, gets tackled by his doppelganger. One of the wizards kills the doppelganger with a spell she made up called Pie in the Face. She like literally shot a break hard pie at the doppelganger to kill it. And so the thief is like, okay, I read the book, and he reads it, and he botches his roll again, and he ends up with the dead doppelganger conjoined to him. So
was it conjoined as undead, or was it just a body?
Just a body.
Oh man!
And the kids are really cool with it. They had a good time.
That's good.
When I run with kids, especially if we're like short on time because it's like a demo or something, I'll always let them do like an epilogue to see what happens to their characters later in life. And the thief ended up getting tried for starting the forest fire, but rolled well for the first time. He was acquitted. And the fighter became the wrestling champion of the entire world. And the 2 wizards, they separated, but they went on in life adventuring together. So it's cool. Fun.
Like you say, but they decided they didn't like it, so they went back together.
Master the game. You asked when I'm running for kids, do I keep it less violent? Sometimes. If their parents are around, yep. If their parents aren't around, kids love violence. They watch violent cartoons. They play violent video games. I'm not going to get like super gross with it.
Graphic.
But I'm not going to say like, oh, you put the orc to sleep forever. You know, like, oh, you killed the orc. But yeah, yeah.
I think it's funny that you just kind of add it yourself. You're like, so I'm thinking, don't leave your kids alone with Cecil.
Yeah, like I said, I worked with kids for a long time. And, kids, they'll go out of their way. They'll find the violence. I feel like if you talk to a kid like they're a kid, especially when their parents aren't around, they close up. So if I got this like 10-year-old kid who has played Battlefield, he's watched Dragon Ball Z where they spend 45 minutes beating the shit out of each other. He's already seen that stuff. So when he comes to me to play games, if I'm like, well, you knock out the orc, he's going to close up. He's going to think that I'm trying to be bigger than him and trying to be parental and stuff. I'm not. So we're here to have fun. So he kills the orc, Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and it's true because, kids aren't stupid, and they're so much smarter than we were now. Like
Absolutely.
they have so much more access to information than we ever did.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, just run it. And if I'm running teenagers, like I play it just like most of the time like I would if I was with my group of adults, you know. So just have fun.
So we are coming up on the hour mark. What do you want to leave people with before we head on out?
Oh man, I don't know. I didn't think about that.
Oh no.
Thanks for listening. This has been a lot of fun. Play D&D with your kids. That's what I want to say. Yeah, my kid hates role-playing games and it bums me out. So yours doesn't play D&D with kids.
Yeah, for us, we've got like one was kind of into it, one that is not into it at all, and like, you know, we tried playing. Like I tried playing like the family game, and it just didn't hold my daughter's interest. And you know, we were playing 5e, and you know, she was playing a bard. Like I even tried at the time she was in the Monster High, so I tried to make her character like a Monster High character. I made it a shifter and a bard. And she was playing a teenager, so I gave her the spell cards, and like the only thing she seemed to really like to do was cast her spells and play the cards like they were Pokemon cards or something, even though she's never played that. So.
Yeah, that's cool. My daughter likes rolling the dice. She likes to leave them around the house so that I step on them. But whenever I'm like, hey, let's do a story with these dice, she's like...
So. My son is 17, and he was into it for a couple years in our game. And then now he's just more interested in video games and being afraid of girls and sports and everything else pretty much.
17, yeah.
Yeah, so. But, you know, I want to thank you for coming on, Cecil. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for...
I think you said that there's links in the description for Hex Kit and stuff like that.
There is, absolutely. And your website and social media.
Sweet. Yeah, if you get into Hex Kit, and you have trouble with it, if you start taking stuff out and forgetting to put it back in, just ping me on Twitter with something angry and I'll help you out. So.
Absolutely. And so I want to thank you for coming on, and thanks for demoing it for us. That was really cool to see it live in action. And thanks everyone for hanging out. Until next time, stay nerdy.
Bye, everybody.